Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian at the Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island, where we're covering the International Seapower Symposium, the 22nd gathering of Naval and Coast Guard leaders this year with 100 chiefs of Navy or other senior representatives, including Coast Guard representatives. And we've got with us Admiral Ahmad Kamarul, who is the CNO of the Malaysian Navy. Sir, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
I want to first start off, you've come literally from halfway around the world. Why are conferences like this, international sea power conferences like this, important to you?
Well, firstly, it's great to be back here to Newport, Rhode Island. I was a student here 20 years ago, attending the Naval Staff course. And from that onwards, this Naval War College has always been an institution where I keep on monitoring what they do and things like that. And we know that the effect of the knowledge that I've got it from during my Naval Staff College have been very, very useful in doing my job and until the Chief of Navy. And that's one of the reasons why I fly all over across the world, 30 hours of flight and transit time, and it's just fantastic to be back here. And it has been a great session so far. The panels and the lectures and the presentations by all the speakers have been fantastic. And I still remember when I was in the Staff College, it's all about learning. And there's so much to learn during that time and a host a lot of issues. And now coming back here, it's about sharing. So this is something that I think is a good cycle of learning, and sharing is something that very, very important to not just build partnership, but more importantly, relationship. And personal relationship is one of those things that I gain a lot by being here with over 100 maritime leaders, Chief of Navies and Head of Coast Guard is here.
What are some of the strategic partnerships that you're seeking to build as the Chief of the Malaysian Navy at a time of rising tension in the region?
Well, I think it's very important to understand issues. It's very important to also understand who are around you and their thinking, their ideas, and their values, and what they believe in. And I think by understanding all those things, that you are actually able to build up this partnership. And I think the strength of ISS 22 is getting people together and sharing ideas and sharing about thinking and new things. And this will help us in our decision-making process now and in the future.
What are some of the most interesting ideas you've heard here that you're going to take back with you?
We had a speech by the Deputy Secretary of Defense, Secretary Robert Work, this afternoon. Is fantastic. He shared about what is going to be in the future for the US Navy, where looking into the new strategy, what we call
the third offset strategy.
Thank you. The third offset strategy. So he talked about the third offset strategy and focusing on what I see is how the future assets, the future way of doing things, which from my perspective is focusing on the hardware and the software of warfare in the future. This is fantastic. It is very, very interesting concepts, and I'm sure US have got the resources to do so. Unfortunately for smaller nations like Malaysia and small navies like the Malaysian Navy, we can't afford to look at this focusing on just the hardware and software because of due to the resources constraint. And here, from my point of view, coming down here also, we can hedge on defense diplomacy. And I think I like to use the same terminology here. The focus is now, for me, is on the humanware. So we need not just on the hardware, but also the software and also the human way of doing things. And I think I feel that the same concept of thinking of the idea of in the future is thinking outside the box on how we can actually build better relationship, more effective relationship now as we go into the future.
Let me ask you a little bit about the geostrategic situation. When you look at it from Washington's perspective, as a Pacific power, China is, of course, of concern to a lot of the nations in the region. As you're looking at some of the concerns that Malaysia has and some of the strategic challenges that you're trying to counter or deter, what's the Malaysian view of the region and what's going on?
Well, Malaysia is a maritime nation. We are bordering, countries that have many issues in terms of actually overlapping claims and everything else. But we do also have more immediate challenges and issues on maritime security. Addressing some, for example, the current one is the Sulu Seas, which are fronting the southern Philippines. Where we are looking at a very innovative and creative way in addressing some of these challenges. Malaysia is one of those nations that formulate the Malacca Straits Patrol, the MSP, which has been a very successful model that Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia and Thailand, four nations working together and being seen working together, is now able to bring down the piracy threat to now zero thus far, where it involves sea patrol, as well as eyes in the sky, which is the surveillance, and also exchange of intelligence against piracy. And now we are using this model. We are now replicating this model, where the same model of MSP, we are introducing this to the Sulu Seas, and we call it the SSP, the Sulu Seas Patrol. It is now being discussed and looking towards operationalizing and implementing the strategy, this patrol in the near future.
Let me ask you, one of the things that you've made as a priority is transformation of your force, even though you talked about the resource constraints. What are the foundations? What are you trying to achieve, and what are some of the innovative initiatives you're working on?
Okay, yeah. We just introduced this concept called 15 to 5 for the Royal Malaysian Navy. It's transformation of the Royal Malaysian Navy. Currently, we are managing an aging fleet of 15 classes of ships. Average age is about 30 years and coming from 7 different nations. So imagine the logistic challenges and resource nets to ensure to manage this fleet is really huge. But at the same time, we are not getting the right amount of budget that we wish. So looking at this challenge, we realize that business can no longer be the usual. So we adopt this idea of concept of reducing the number of classes from 15 to 5 classes of ships. So instead of from 7 different nations, we're now looking into local industry to focus on these 5 classes of ships. And what we need is actually by phasing out the old ships, we are able to achieve a huge savings of sustaining the aging fleet. And this savings, huge saving, what we term as efficiency savings, and to add on to many other activities that we do to increase efficiency, is managing the fleet, can be used to actually initiate a program for the newer classes of ships. So it is a very innovative way, and we are very happy in the sense that the government have in a way endorsed, in principle endorsed this program, which even though with the current global economic slowdown, we are very confident of actually coming up with a new program of ships. Coming out, the one that's coming out very close in the horizon is a littoral mission ship. This will be effectively built with partnership with another country, but will be effectively built in Malaysia, and using a lot of our own capacity, and also in a way it would enhance the local defense industry in Malaysia.
And what about your sea-based concept? You've also been employing that regionally as well.
Yeah, again, we look at challenges, in this case resource challenges of having ships out there and to sustain operations in the Sulu Sea, for example. Previously, our basis is very much at inshore, and the areas where the hotspots are, which is quite away, and it takes a couple of hours to provide the necessary response whenever there's any incidents. So innovative approach is we have adopted the sea base, where we are using the old oil rigs, MOPU they call it, Mobile Offshore Platform Unit, MOPU, and all containerized container ships, and they are being transformed into military structure and sea base. So by positioning this old oil rigs and turning it into a grey structure, we're able now provide the huge deterrence with surveillance capability to enhance maritime domain awareness, situational awareness, and able to provide support to the interceptors. And therefore, we are able now to put the sea base right forward to the areas of concern. And the interesting bit is that this is being funded by the private sector, which is our Petronas, well, with the Petroleum Company of Malaysia. So we are doing this collaborating with them. And we're quite happy in the sense that they cover the cost, and we're quite happy to put our people there and getting everybody to use this facility offshore. So the sea base are now in operation. We've got one of the fixed sea base, and the other two is a mobile sea base. So there are 3 sea bases now operating in the Sulu Seas. So this is something that, again, we are very proud about.
Sir, thanks so much for your time and best of luck.
Okay, thank you very much for the interview.